Hey, what's up guys? I'm Steve Wells and today we are going to be talking about my snowshoes. And that's not actual snowshoes, that is my Altra Olympus 4. So we've been getting a lot of snow in Nashville this week. We got probably 6 or 7 inches of snow and ice, and apparently people in the South don't own shovels. So I've been running on a lot of packed down ice and loose snow and that kind of thing. And so for all of my road runs lately, I have been wearing these shoes. I tried out some other things and they just weren't cutting it, and this was the best thing that I found. But I've also done a good amount of trail miles in them. I did a 15-mile trail run, a 10-mile trail run, so I feel like I have a pretty good feel on what these shoes are like. So this is going to be Altra's Max Cushion Trail shoe. It has the Vibram outsole on it. Like all Altras, also has the foot-shaped toe box and zero drop, so the ball of your foot is going to be level with your heel. So like with all of my videos these days, if you're interested in the specs of this shoe, I'll have them down in the description, so you can go ahead down there and check them out if you're interested. But let's talk about the weight of this shoe. So this one's an 11.5. I would go true to size for sure on this one. So we're looking at 11.9 ounces. So by no means a lightweight shoe, but that's not really what it was designed for. And if we compare it to something like the New Balance Hierro, which is something that I would say is in the same category as this, you're looking at 13.9 ounces. So actually, if you're comparing these two, kind of puts it into perspective, and this one starts seeming a little bit lighter. But if we compare it to the Altra Timp, which is going to be their next shoe down in their lineup in terms of cushioning, that is 10.9 ounces. So actually, I haven't done this before. So it is going to be lighter though. And that's a relatively significant amount, I guess. So exactly where you would expect it to be. A little bit lighter than something like the Hierro, a little bit heavier than the Timp, for sure heavier than like the Lone Peak and Superior. So before we get into some pros about this shoe, really quick, head down into my description. I'll have a link there to my Patreon. Click on that. Starting at $1 a month, you can get early access to my videos. If you want to help out me, help out the channel, keep me doing what I'm doing, that's the way to do it. But getting right into it with the pros about the Altra Olympus 4. So my first pro is the fit of this shoe. Works really well for me. I think it will work well for a lot of people. So it's just kind of average proportions, which is a good thing. It's not crazy high volume, it's not crazy low volume, it's not crazy wide, it's not crazy narrow. Relatively straight shape to it. So if you're comparing it to something like the Timp, if you feel like the Timp is not enough volume or not enough width for your foot, this would be a good way to go. If you feel like neither of these are enough width, the Lone Peak does come in a wide now, so that is probably the direction I would go if you really have a wide foot. But in terms of fit, I would say this one fits almost more similar to the Timp 1.5 than the Timp 2 fits to the Timp 1.5. It just gives you more room in general, and I think will work well with a lot of different foot types. So my next pro is the drop at 0 millimeters. This is kind of where I like to be. I like 0 to maybe 4 to 6, and then 8's pushing it, and then 10, 12, 13 is way too much for me. And that is not only because of the way that I feel when I'm running in a lower drop shoe, but also because of the foot health benefits that go along with that. You can argue all day about who's right on that argument when it comes to drop, but from what I've read, from what I've seen, lower drop usually better, as long as you're not hurting yourself to do it. My next pro is this Vibram Megagrip outsole. This works really well on slippery surfaces, which is what you're going to be on when you're on the trail. One of my complaints with the Timp was that I was slipping when I was on wet rocks or roots or that kind of thing. This shoe, I literally the other day was walking on a sheet of ice and hardly slipping at all. In any other shoe, even in like hiking boots and that kind of thing, I was sliding all over the place. Katie was wearing her Hoka Torrents and was slipping all over the place, and I was not having a problem at all in these. Also, I feel like the lug depth and placement is really good on this shoe. Works well for muddy trails, but also if you end up kind of on a little bit of pavement, it's not going to be the end of the world. My next pro is the cushioning for what this shoe is. So if you want to go out on the trail, have something that's nice and stable, that as your foot is getting tired, you're not going to have to do too much work. If you want something that you can step on a root that's that big and not even notice that it's under your foot, this is the shoe for you. That's not to say that this amount of cushion is going to be the best option for everyone, but for what this shoe is designed for, I think it does a really good job balancing, staying a little bit lighter weight, giving a good amount of cushion but not squishing all over the place, and staying relatively stable as well. So essentially, if you just want a shoe that you can throw on, do a ton of miles, whether you're running or hiking, I see actually surprisingly few thru hikers talking about this shoe. I'm not super involved in that community, but in terms of like watching YouTube videos, seeing what people are saying online and that kind of thing, most people are talking about the Lone Peak, when I'm surprised that people that are putting in long days through hiking whatever trail aren't talking more about this shoe, because with the amount of cushioning that you have under your foot, especially if you have a heavy pack on, and the amount of durability that you're going to get out of this shoe, I feel like it's probably a better choice. When it comes to durability, also with this outsole, you are going to get a lot of durability out of this Vibram rubber. You're going to probably not have any problems in terms of this upper with the placement that they have of these overlays. This seems like a fairly durable mesh, even though it is pretty breathable. And I really don't see this shoe wearing out prematurely at all. Normally they say 400 to 500 miles, but I could totally see 600 to 1,000 miles out of this shoe. That's not what Altra is saying. I haven't done that number of miles in them. I don't know anyone that has, but I could totally see getting that many miles out of this shoe. And my next pro is something that actually all Altra trail shoes have now, and that's this gator trap. So you got this piece of Velcro in the back. You have this little loop on the front in front of the laces, that if you would like to add a gator to this shoe, keep crap out of them, you can do that easily without having to hook it onto your laces or anything like that. So let's get into some cons about the Altra Olympus 4. My first con is it is beefy. So it's not going to be a super agile shoe. If you're on super technical surfaces, it doesn't do terribly, because you can just kind of step and just plow through whatever you encounter, but you're not going to be quickly stepping around rocks and roots and that kind of thing like you might in something like the Superior. It also is probably going to be much more weight and much more cushion than what most people are looking for, especially on the trail. So if you're in something like the Hierro, or maybe even the Speed Goat or something like that, Stinson for sure, and you wanted to go to a different shoe, this would be a good one to check out. But you probably don't necessarily need this much cushion and this much weight under your foot if you're doing shorter runs. My next con is the price. At $170, it is going to be a more expensive shoe. So if you're looking at even like the Speed Goat or the Hierro or something like that, this is going to be more expensive, and I believe that is mostly because of the outsole material, a little bit more expensive for Altra to get Vibram rubber from that company, so they have to charge more for this shoe. Not totally sure on that, but I think that's kind of where that price point is coming from. But with the durability that you'll probably see in this shoe, it might still be worth it to invest that extra money in this one. And my last con is going to be the tongue. So while it is a little bit cushioned and it is a gusseted tongue, so you're not going to have a ton of like movement back and forth, I do feel like it is a little bit thin. So with this type of shoe, with how heavy it already is, you're not trying to save too much weight on it. You are going to probably be doing longer miles in this shoe, and I was having, after like 10, 15, a few hours in this shoe, I was starting to notice the laces a little bit on the top of my foot more than I would like. So I could definitely see if you were doing 100 miles in this shoe that you might start to complain about those laces pressing on the top of your foot after a while. But that about does it for cons with this shoe. So will I continue wearing this shoe? I believe I will, but for kind of what it's meant for. So if I'm going to be going out for 4, 5, 6 miles on the trail, I would probably gravitate towards something more like the Timp, something more like the Lone Peak. If you're doing kind of shorter, faster runs, I would go Superior. But if you're doing really long, slow trail runs, that is what this shoe's designed for. Or if you're doing long hikes, that is also a great use for this shoe. If you're looking for kind of a universal shoe that you might even be doing a little road running in, you might be doing some longer runs, you might be doing some shorter runs, I would look at the Timp or the Lone Peak. But if you love a ton of cushioning under your foot, you don't want to feel that trail at all, I still don't think that this is a bad option for those shorter runs. So I hope this video has been helpful. If you have any more questions for me, be sure to leave them in the comments. Like and subscribe. Check out my Patreon account while you're down there for early access to my videos, and I will talk to you guys next week.